Hi everybody, it is April and today we're going to make a 3-yard. No, we're going to make a 5-yard quilt. You know where we're going to get the pattern? From Fabric Cafe. Fabric Cafe has now come out with 5-yard quilts. How awesome is that? And today, the pattern that we're going to be making is going to end up being a 52 by 72. So that's before you even add any extra borders that you might want to add. And Oliver somehow has a sixth sense and knows when I'm going to be shooting a video. The pattern we are making today is called Athena, and it is this pattern right here. Now, with 3-yard quilts, I had it down. I knew what to pick for fabric 1, fabric 2, and fabric 3. Now we have 4 and 5. 4 is supposed to be your focus fabric. And then fabric 5 is whatever it is you want to add on. So as long as it matches, it's not really supposed to make a difference as to whether it's dark or light or whatever. Now, I haven't played with this concept yet, so I'm not real sure. But when picking my fabrics for this 5-yard quilt, I found that what I would pick for fabric 4, which is a focus fabric, I didn't want to use for fabric 4 with the fabrics I'm using. Let's go through what I'm going to use and then let me explain that a little further. So fabric 1. First of all, the fabrics that I'm going to be using, this one, and this one, are all Mardi Gras themed. And Lucy sent them to me. I will put a link in the description below to her shop. She has other fabrics as well. So I was so excited when she sent me these. Now she also sent me this awesome shirt that says, "The world needs more Louisiana girls," because I was born in Louisiana and she lives in Louisiana. So we have, we have that in common. I will wear it. I just went to church this morning and, I wasn't going to change. My fabric 1 is going to be this. I love this paisley. I've always liked paisley, so this is a no-brainer. Now, fabric 2 is usually what I pick last. So fabric 3 is supposed to be the darker of the fabrics. I have some coordinating fabrics. This purple is one of them. And fabric 3 is perfect. This is going to work fine. So this will be fabric 3. Now, fabric 2 is normally, like I said, the lighter of your 3 yards. Well, I have 3 yards left that I have to assign a particular number. So I'm going to leave fabric 2 until the end. Or, maybe before I pick fabric 3. Now, fabric 4 is supposed to be your additional focus fabric. Fabric 4 is the green fabric. It's not the print, it's the green outline around the print. Well, my other feature fabric has kind of a large print on it. So I don't want to cut this down to that small a strip. So I decided that I want this to be fabric 5. So now I have these 2 left over. I kind of want this to go around my fabric 2 or 5. This is fabric 4. And that makes this fabric 2. Look how fun. Okay. What is the likelihood that I'm going to keep 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 straight? Don't take odds. Or if you do, don't pick me. Let's get cutting. Now, the instructions are just like they were before. So they have pictures. Yay, pictures. Fabric 1. Straighten it out. It's pretty straight. Now, it says to cut pieces for the binding. I don't think that I want to use this for my binding. If I change my mind, I'll come back and cut that later. Fabric 2. This looks like it is wider than your normal fabric. I wonder if it is. Guess we'll find out, huh? Oh, you're back. You're back. Okay, I need for you to move. You gotta move. Thank you. Ha! That's weird. Oh, just felt weird. I cannot give you measurements because these are not my patterns. I will, however, put a link in the description in case you are interested in getting your own book. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did I do that wrong? Yes, I did. Thank goodness. Lucy gave me extra fabric. Wow. Okay. Okay, you gotta move, dude. Lay down. Do not reach. Fabric 3. Fabric 4. This green fabric, it's got kind of a shimmer to it. I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera. It is by Blank Quilting. In case you were wondering, this purple is Alchemy by Tim Holtz. Fabric 5. Here is fabric 5. We are on the last fabric. Such a nice fabric. It is so silky. It's really nice fabric. Thank you again, Lucy. Y'all, you all rock. We got our fabric cut despite Oliver. So now let's see what's next. Our first task is to take fabric 2 and fabric 3 and sew them together. Now we have 2 strips of each, and then we have a partial. My Mardi Gras fabric is significantly longer. Not as long as I was thinking. I measured backwards. But I do have extra of the fabric from Lucy. So not only is it beautiful, but it's wider than your normal fabric. All right, let's go to the sewing machine. For anyone who is new to quilting, when you attach your fabric together or sew your fabric together, you are going to use a 1/4 inch seam. And if you notice right here on my plate, my needle plate, I have a 1/4 inch marking. I also have it on my table, so I can line my fabric up, and as long as my needle is in the center, I will get a 1/4 inch seam. And this is called piecing. Now when I don't break my thread in between the 2 different sets of fabric that I'm piecing, this is called chain piecing. It saves you thread, it saves you time, because you're not breaking thread and starting over. Now, some people pin. I am not one of those people. I just make adjustments as I go along in the sewing process. But you are more than welcome to pin. If you are like me and you don't like pins because they stick you, there are these clips, and you can clip your fabric, and that holds your fabric together. So if you need something to keep your fabric in place, these clips are awesome. So you just sew to where your clip is and remove it, much like pins. Now, this piece of my fabric is considerably longer, so I'm going to cut it so that I can continue chain piecing. I should have cut it before I started, but you know, it just did not happen, unfortunately. After we sew our strips, we are going to press the seam so that we set the seam, and then we are going to press to the dark side. So I'm going to open my fabric and gently press it open. Now, some people use starch. I do not. If I use anything, I use this Faultless Premium Luxe Spray. Give a little spritz, and that helps keep my fabric nice and flat. So this is my partial strip. Now I need to do this on these big long strips. This mat is from Novadon, and this mat is made of merino wool instead of wool from New Zealand. And one of the things that I noticed is it doesn't smell like a wet dog or wet sheep the first time that you use it. Now, the benefit of wool is supposed to be when you have the heat from your iron set your fabric, it heats on both sides because of the wool mat, and that causes you to get a better press. I like the 5-foot surface space of this mat because it makes it easier to press than just on a regular ironing board. And what I have underneath it is just one of those plastic lifetime tables. So here we have our fabric pressed. Now that I have pressed my strips, I'm going to subcut. Now, you quilters out there who have been doing this for years, you know all of these terms and you know exactly what they mean. I'm going into a little more detail for those people who haven't sewn before. So what I did is I stacked my strip sets on top of one another, and I stacked them at an offset. So if you notice, this fabric, these two lines aren't meeting because there is a seam here, and I stack it so that the seams aren't on top of one another. And then this third partial strip set, I'm going to put that seam even lower so I get a nice smooth cut. Now I'm going to straighten the edge, and the way that I do that, use a wider ruler, is I take a line on my ruler and I line it on the seam where the purple and the Mardi Gras come together, because that seam should be straight. And then I follow the instructions on how to cut my strips. And I am still lining up on this seam. Now, if for some reason I'm not able to line up on the seam, because after you cut strips over and over, sometimes they just aren't, the edge isn't straight anymore. This I don't seem to be having a problem with. But if that were the case, I would line up my straight edge, I would line it up again and get it straight, and then keep cutting. And see, this fabric is kind of sticking out a little more, so I'm going to go ahead, line up my fabric on the seam of my, or on the seam and the line on my ruler, and I'm just cutting a little sliver just to get it nice and straight. And then I go back to subcutting. So here I am nesting the seams to sew my 4-patch, and this will match my seams. Next up, Block A assembly, referring to Unit D assembly diagram using 2 Unit A sewn together as shown. Here are all of my Unit A's. I'm making a 4-patch. I'm going to make 12 of these, and I have 24. I will chain piece these together. I have a little tool that makes this part much easier. Next up, we're going to take our medium strip of fabric 2 and a fabric 3 skinny strip. So we are going to attach these like this. So I trimmed it so it's even. Here we have strip assembly B. Now we're going to work on strip assembly C. And that is 1 fabric number 2 and 1 fabric number 3. Here's the fabric number 3, and here is fabric number 2. Here we go. Gonna go ahead, kind of line these up because I know that fabric 3 is longer than fabric 2. So I want to make sure that I trim. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take the 4 patch that we made and we are going to add fabric 3 to either side. We're going to add a strip to this side and a strip to this side for 12 units. I'm going to subcut these strips so that they are the correct size. Okay, so there's for a block. And I'll do this until I have strips for either side of all of my 4 patches. Now that we have added these borders to our 4 patch, we need to press them. So I'm going to spray a little Faultless, and I'm going to press my seams. Let's see if my iron, it was hot. It's warming up. And then I'm going to gently fold over the border and kind of lift up my iron and press so that I don't cause the borders to get askew. These borders can stretch, and I really don't want them to stretch any more than necessary. So I'm just going to push back, but see, I don't have my iron on my mat. And then I'm just going to set my iron down on the border. And same with the other side. We now have our 4 patch with borders attached. Now we need to add Unit B, which is, I believe, this unit. All right, so Unit B, oops, wrong way, going this way, and Unit B going, whoops, that's not Unit B, that's Unit C. We need Unit B, and Unit B going this way. So I think I'm going to turn my block this way and then put all of my blocks in the same orientation, because you might think that it doesn't make a difference, and I am telling you from experience, it can. Ask me how I know. So I want to, let's see, so the purple on Unit B should be at the top of fabric 2, not fabric 3. So that's my check. I'm going to have 12 of unit B over here and over here, and I am going to do the same thing that I did with the 4-patch and adding the borders. I'm going to chain piece. So I will attach this unit B on this side, and then I will come back and I will attach this unit B on the other side. I wanted to point out that when you are adding these strips, there's a little more complexity to this than there was the other, adding these borders to your 4-patch. So this has a seam, and you are going to want to nest your seam when you are placing these blocks together. So the way that I pressed it, I have to push this seam against the way that I pressed. Now here I've nested the seams, and if you don't want to nest on the fly while you're sewing like I do, if I can get this open, you can take a clip and you can clip where you're nested. And the same is going to go for the other side. You've got a seam here and a seam here, and you want to nest these two seams. So when you are pressing unit B, don't press to the dark side, press to the light side, or that's assuming that your fabric 3 is dark. Press towards fabric 2, not towards fabric 3. What we want to do next is add strips to the side with most fabric 2. So I'm taking the strips that we cut previously, and I've got 12 blocks, so I need 24 strips. And I am using the measurement from the picture in the book to cut my strips. So that's how I know what size I need to make my strips. 11, so I'll take one more strip. Once again, I'm going to take my blocks to the sewing machine, and I'm going to attach fabric 3 on both sides of the block where the most of fabric 2 is showing. And then we've got one more step, and we have completed block A. We are so close. We have 2 more sides to add to this block, and they are this. Now, the way that I'm going to have to remember this is wherever the fabric 2 is, my purple or my fabric 3 is going to connect. Now, I found it easiest, so actually I should flip them this way. So what I did, I found it easiest on which strip? On these 2 strips. They were similar to this, they just weren't as long. If I started where there was no seam and sewed and then hit the seam further down. So I will sew this side first. Well, now here there are seams because we've come to a different point in this project. And also, so this is easy, you just match up and sew. Here, because there is a seam, I am going to nest again, just like I did on the others, And if you're not comfortable with just nesting on the fly, you are going to want to put a clip or something here, a clip or a pin to hold it in place. And then when I flip it, so once I finish sewing this side, I'll flip this way and it will end up being the same thing, where I match up here and then have to do a nesting at the bottom, like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and attach these and then attach these to this side, and we will have block A done. Okay, here is our block A. Now on to block B. Now block B is probably going to be a lot easier. Well, this wasn't hard, but less labor intensive, shall we say, than block A. So what we're going to do is we're taking my favorite fabric of the grouping, and we are going to take, okay, so this is fabric 1, and we are going to take these strips of fabric 4, and we are going to put them on either side. And we have 1, 2, 3 strips that we are going to do that with. And then we will subcut them, and they will end up being blocks that have this fabric 4 all the way around. That's easier to see. Okay. Here is my first strip. I do not know how I do not cut straight. It amazes me how I am so not able, all right, to cut straight. While I have these out here, let's go ahead and talk about what we do to finish this block. So we're going to take our strip and we are going to measure, not really measure, we're going to measure out the strips, but we'll put a strip on this side and a strip on this side, and this will be block B. So let's see, okay. See if I can do this right. So those 2 strips will finish this one block. Let me go put these blocks together so that you can see what block B is going to look like when it's finished. So here is what block B will finish like. So pretty! I'm going to finish making my block B's, and then we will take our block B's and our block A's, and we are going to make a 5-yard quilt. I have taken the liberty of putting the blocks up on the wall. They look pretty cool. I like it. Now, the great thing about having 5 different fabrics is we are going to see some new fabrics on the border that aren't within the quilt. Really, we're going to see one, and that is this fabric right here. So the pattern calls for fabric 2 to be a strip here, and it's a skinny strip. Then the pattern calls for fabric 5. This is the first time that we've pulled fabric 5 into the mix. Then fabric 2, no, this is fabric 2, this is fabric 4. So fabric 4, which we have seen, is the next border. And then again, fabric 5. Now I did consider cutting fabric 5, cut some wider strips, but I had already cut these strips according to the directions. Now, when I'm making a 3-yard quilt, and this will also become my practice for a 5-yard quilt, I usually don't cut out the borders when I'm cutting the rest of the fabric, because I want the opportunity to maybe make a border wider, skip a border. Here I'm going to be sewing border, 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 border. It'll look great, but I might not want to do that much sewing next time. You too can do the same thing. Next up, I am going to sew all my rows together, add my borders, and I am going to have a Mardi Gras quilt. My quilt top is complete. My first 5-yard quilt. I think it turned out really well. And it is significantly larger than my 3-yard quilts. I am a fan. I just want to say thank you so much for watching my channel. I know that you have all kinds of places and all kinds of videos that you can watch. I truly appreciate the fact that you take the time to watch mine. If you would like to help my channel, please subscribe. I know over 50% of you who watch aren't subscribed, and when you subscribe, that tells YouTube that you like my channel, and they might push it out a little further so that I can reach that 100,000 subscriber silver play button moment. I am part of a retreat that is going on this spring. It starts at the end of April, goes through May 3rd. It is in Hamilton, Missouri, the quilt capital of the world. Well, at least the United States. We are going to have tons of fun. We have just opened up our Facebook page, and all of our friends are going to get to know us. We're going to have prizes. You can get work done, demonstrations, projects, swag bags. It's going to be awesome. I will leave the information in the description below. It is a retreat that I am throwing with Die of Sister Chicks, Tracy of the Sewing Channel, and me. I am also taking the trip of a lifetime in September to Ireland. I would love to have you join me on that trip of a lifetime, and we can take that together. If you need more information for that, again, in the description below. And if you have more questions, just email me at aprilscraftroom@gmail.com. Now, Di and I did a live this past Sunday, and I was whining and crying about having too many scraps. So I gave out my email. Several of you emailed me back. I am going through those scraps, and I'm going to send you each a box of scraps. I just love the quilting community. It doesn't get any better than quilters. I do want to put in a little plug for the 5-yard quilt book. You know what? It's worth every penny. Here are the different patterns, and I can't wait to make each one of them. I'm going to throw this on my Grace long arm and use my automation to quilt it. So cross your fingers, we'll be seeing the final quilt really soon. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, eat some chocolate, and be kind to everyone. Until next time, bye. You go to the other side. Go the other side. You really? Oh, such a sweet kitty. You're so rotten. You're just so rotten. All right, let's get this sucker going. That is not what I wanted to say. My Mardi Gras quilt. And of course, the phone would have to ring.